Hi, and welcome to the 11th EPP Congress of Young Farmers podcast, a kickoff series to one of the most influential gatherings in the EU shaping the future of European agriculture. My name is Mariana Correia, and in each episode, I talk with political leaders and partners who turn ideas into policy and policy into action. This is where the conversation begins and where the future of farming starts to take shape. Thank you for listening. I will start the podcast by introducing my guest today. He is the Deputy CEO of Solar Power Europe, the leading association representing the solar photovoltaic industry across Europe. He's also one of Brussels' key voices on renewable energy, working to accelerate Europe's solar transition and make it more resilient. From manufacturing and supply chains to policy and innovation, his work focuses on turning Europe's clean energy ambition into reality for everyone, including farmers. Dries Acke, welcome to our podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
So, Dries, before we dive into solar and policy, I know you are a trained historian, and I heard you still love to hear history podcasts. So my question is, so if you could bring one historical figure to Brussels to help with Europe's energy transition, who would it be and why?
Well, thank you very much for that question. It feels like I've been waiting for that question my entire life. I would be looking for somebody who can connect the dots. The energy transition is not just a matter of climate scientists or engineers or sociologists. It's about all of them. It's multidisciplinary. So the person I was getting to was a German professor, Alexander von Humboldt. You may know him because the university in Berlin is still called after him. And he was really a brilliant generalist. He connected dots between Gulf Stream and local climates, between what climate and environment does to human communities. So he's the kind of brilliant generalist that we also need to make sure that we look at the energy transition as a multidisciplinary initiative.
Very good. Sounds a good choice because history is all about learning from the past to shape the future, right? Mm-hmm. But right now, let's start fast forward to the present and talk about Europe's energy transformation, starting with one of its most ambitious goals. So the EU's Net Zero Industry Act sets the ambition of reaching 30 gigawatts of European solar manufacturing by 2030. From your perspective, will Europe reach this target?
So it is hard to say. And it also depends on what components, because of course a solar panel, a solar module or a solar system is composed of different elements. It may be possible that we manage to build 30 gigawatts of solar modules, but some other parts of the solar value chain are more difficult to reshore to Europe. But I think what is more important is that the direction of travel is positive. We have seen over the last years, 5 to 10 years, and even more in the last years, a downturn of solar manufacturing capacity in Europe. And we need to make sure that this trend is reversed, that we have again a positive business case for solar manufacturing in Europe. And if we can turn around that trend, we will have made an important contribution. Mm-hmm. The European legislation is good. The Net Zero Industry Act, as it is called, will help with the diversification of solar supply chains. It's unclear whether it will make it to the 30 gigawatts, but it's a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And of course, building panels is not is one thing, but applying them across Europe is something different, and it brings a lot of other challenges. You once called solar and storage a match made in heaven. Mm-hmm. What is still holding back that partnership?
Solar and storage is really a natural evolution. A lot of the solar companies that we represent are naturally becoming solar and storage, especially battery storage companies, because it makes sense together. Solar is actually a very predictable technology. It generates during the day. Yeah? Of course, it's also limited to the daytime, which means that the combination of solar with the battery storage elements can really extend the electrons that solar generates to other parts of the day. And we have seen such an amazing technological revolution when it comes to battery storage that it's really game-changing the energy economics. Batteries are not just a 1 hour storage or 2 hour storage. It's now becoming 4, 6, 8-hour battery storage exists today. If you combine that with the solar generated in a day, you almost have 24/7 round the clock solar energy. So yes, it's a match made in heaven. Europe is behind on battery storage. That's why we have a very clear call for policymakers to multiply the amount of battery storage in Europe by a factor 10 in the next 5 years.
And Solar Power Europe latest outlooks says that Europe's solar expansion has been slowing in 2025, even after a record growth. What needs to change to keep this momentum?
Yeah, so we have seen record solar growth, as you say, and what we feel is that it is now coming to what we expect next year is actually for the first time in 10 years that we will not break the record of the previous years. We see that renewables growth has been exceptional, but renewables are a bit stuck in an electricity system that is too small and not flexible enough. So that's why we need a couple of things. First, we need electrification. We need more demand for the electrons that we are producing. And that is also something that the European Commission has in mind. There is actually a target for electrification under the Clean Industrial Deal. We very much welcome that, but we really need to drive that agenda. And then together with electrification comes flexibility, as I mentioned before, in the forms of battery storage in the first place, but also updating the grids so that the renewable electricity, which comes at different moments of the day, can be used at more moments of the day. Electrification and flexibility are the main challenges. The other thing that I would mention is that one of the main reasons why is now a little downturn is because the rooftop solar, so residential, people like you and me, putting solar on the rooftops, that market is significantly reducing. And that's actually a bit of a paradox because it's exactly the rooftop solar that has helped people and companies that had solar on their roofs to hedge against the high electricity prices in the time of the energy crisis. So we are stopping with the development of rooftop solar, or at least slowing it down, exactly at a moment where it has shown its value in times of crisis. And
Why
believe
do you
me,
think is that?
well, because there was a real boom in rooftop solar over the last years. So many policymakers have said, we don't need to support it anymore. It is coming by itself. And that was, of course, the case in a crisis moment when electricity prices were so high. The business case made sense by itself. But now that electricity prices have more or less normalized, not exactly at the same levels, but more or less, that economic incentive is not as clear anymore. And policymakers have reduced their support schemes for it. So that two together means that this market is under pressure. And it would be a mistake because it's now the time to invest in it so that we're better prepared for, let's hope, not soon, but the next energy crisis, which can always happen.
So uh, this solar slows down. When solar slows down, it doesn't just affect, as you said, the energy sector, but it also ripples through rural economies too. So this takes us to the concept of agri-solar. Do you see it as a niche opportunity or a real pillar of Europe's rural development strategy?
Yeah, it's not a niche solution at all. It's actually potentially very, very big. And it's not just me saying that, it's also the numbers of the European Commission's Joint Research Center, the JRC, as it is known, that have done some numbers that by only using 1% of agricultural land for agri-solar, we would almost be able to build 1 terawatt of solar. That's 1,000 gigawatts. So the potential is huge. And agri-solar is all about multiple use of land, so dual use of land. It's not about changing the purpose of the land. What agri-solar does, it adds, let's say, value to the land that is used for agriculture alone. So it's about dual use. It's not about competing for lands, and I think that's quite important. It has multiple benefits as well, mostly for the farmers. We have seen, for example, that crop yields with an agri-solar installation has increased with 60% in some cases. Water use can be much more efficient because of this solar installation, reducing evaporation a lot by 20 to 30%. And there's more examples of that. Of course, the most important argument and the most important what makes agri-solar attractive is that it also gives a new revenue source to farmers. We all know how difficult and complex and uncertain the business case and the environment is for farmers. Agri-solar provides a new, very stable revenue stream to farmers without competing for the land. So there's there's many benefits there.
So brings a little bit of predictability.
Yeah, predictability. Yeah, I mean, if you're a farmer, and of course, you
That's
know
very
that very
important
well.
for them.
You know that probably better than me because I come from the solar sector. But that's also why I'm here to learn. Uh, we come with an offer for a different type of revenue stream, which can relieve some of the pressure and of the uncertainties elsewhere. And that is something that captures the opportunity quite well.
That sounds very good. So, how can young farmers and entrepreneurs tap into the solar value chain as active participants in this energy transition?
I think it all starts, first of all, with awareness and education. Just for young farmers to know that this option exists, that this is a venue that they can explore, that there is a solar industry that stands ready to support them. It's a proven concept. We have more than 200 operational agri-solar installations across Europe in all member states. We have a wonderful digital map on our website that I suggest you visit. So it happens. It's only 2.8 gigawatts for the moment, and if you compare that to the 1,000 gigawatt potential I was talking to, you can see that there's some room for growth there. But the awareness around this option is quite important. Also, making sure it's talked about in the right way. We're not talking about competing for land or speculating for land. We're talking about multiple use of existing agricultural land that stays agricultural land. That's the most important. It's just an additional layer for a farmer to diversify and secure its revenue streams.
And Solar Power Europe often talks about this trinity: competitiveness, energy security, and climate. How do you see solar helping agriculture meet all these three goals at once in the coming decade?
We certainly believe that agri-solar can contribute to that for the agricultural communities. There is a vision by the European Commission, the European Union, for agriculture earlier this year that was adopted. That vision recognizes the role of sustainable energy for agriculture as a revenue stream. The same with the European Parliament. They had an own initiative report a couple of weeks ago. Again, agri-solar is recognized there. So for us, it's a lot about making this vision then become reality. And that's why we certainly thought it was important to engage with the stakeholders, with the constituencies on the other side, and have this dialogue, because we believe there's a real benefit here. Maybe I should start talking about a match made in heaven as well on this front.
So you were talking about policymakers, and this takes us to your experience here at the EU level. Do Brussels policymakers listen to what's happening on the ground in rural communities, as they really understand what's happening?
I'm sure there's room for improvement there as well. We have all been talking a lot and are still talking a lot about the democratic nature and the democratic value of the European Union. Of course, it's important not to have too big a distance between citizens, especially in rural communities, and Brussels decision making. That's of course not only a European or a Brussels issue. You can see the same issue on the national level, where rural communities feel not listened to and not heard of. So I think that's why the Commission's vision is important, and that's why we want to make sure that with this initiative, with this cooperation, we can bring a joint message from two industry groups that are not necessarily considered as having a joint message: the solar industry and the agricultural industry. And that's what we want to explore, because in times of uncertainty for policymakers, it's quite important to have messages that are supported by a wider group of people that gives trust in a direction of travel. And we have a lot to offer for each other here. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about this Congress. This is the 11th edition. Why did Solar Power Europe decide to support this event?
Yeah, because we really believe that the opportunity stood out. Yeah? The quality of the organizers, the reputation of the organizers are very clear. The annual events that you've proven to be organizing so many times in the past, because this is like
the 11th time. 11th time.
It's quite unique what you have here. You also bring together, you reach centrist politicians, which I think is quite important. The EPP group is the dominant part of the European Parliament, and I believe the synergies that we have are worth talking about. for the awareness raising and the education that I was talking about before. Solar Power Europe doesn't normally sponsor events. So in that sense, it's more exceptional, but it also proves that we are serious about this, that the industry is committed to the agenda and to the benefits that we were talking about.
And if you could ask for one concrete commitment from policymakers at the Congress, what would it be?
Well, I would love it not to be just a one-off. I would love the cooperation to continue beyond the events only, and make sure that we actually work on a common paper to give the policymakers some homework, if you will, because there's some clear regulatory barriers for agri-solar on the national level. In very few countries, only 5 countries out of how many are there? 27 in the European
27.
Union. You actually have a clear legal definition of what agri-solar is. Only 5 for the moment. And then you have regulatory barriers around support schemes. Only 1 or 2 countries have dedicated support schemes for agri-solar, which are still important for the de-risking the upfront investments. In Germany, for example, you have dedicated auctions for agri-solar. That's unique. That's a good example. But it's not very common across European countries. So there's quite a lot of work to do, not just talking about the collective message or the vision that we want to support, but also about what the actual barriers are on the policy side. And I believe if we can give that to the policymakers and have some kind of a checklist homework, do you have a clear legal definition? Are the support schemes in place? Are the zoning and the land use frameworks in place? Because it's quite important. Putting solar on agriculture doesn't change the agricultural nature of the land. So also in the common agricultural policies, agri-solar needs to be integrated and understood as a benefit to farmers and an addition, not a change of the nature of the land use.
And that's very interesting because you are talking about just 5 countries, and there's a lot of things to be done, right? So I think there's a lot of work for you to do, and for everyone that is involved in this agri community, because we are these are times of uncertainty, and when Europe wants to have more independence, it's important that everyone is together on this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, talking again about the Congress, what message would you like to leave to the young farmers that are starting in this profession?
Well, to young farmers, I would say keep the dream alive, keep the spirit, the entrepreneurial spirit, because I find it very inspirational and I admire that as well. People that take initiative, that take risk, and the risks are quite big, that's what Europe needs, this entrepreneurial spirit, and that's what young farmers have. So we are here as a solar industry, very humbly offering a solution that can ease their dream to come true.
Very good, Dries. Thank you for your perspective. Our time flies, so we are almost in the end of our podcast. But before we leave, I would like to do some quick questions, this or that questions, no explanation needed,
Okay.
so we can get to know you a little bit better. It's okay for you?
Without explanation, I will do my best.
Okay, great. So let's start. What do you prefer, meat or fish?
A diverse menu that is local and as plant-based as possible.
Okay, it's a fair question, a fair answer. Red or white wine?
Red wine.
Batteries or smart grids?
Batteries in smart grids.
Football or chess?
Chess.
Ancient Rome or European Union?
European Union, because I don't necessarily like autocratic regimes. Period.
Because I was asking this because you are you are a trainee historian, so
yeah, and
I
it's
know
very hard for me not to say more about that. So I will refrain myself.
And reading a history book or listening a podcast?
Podcasts complements books.
Books. Very well. Thank you, Dries, for your perspective and for your time here. It was a pleasure to have you here with us. Good luck for the Congress.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. Don't forget that the Congress happens on the 19th of November. You can follow all the updates on social media and you can register if you'd like to attend. Have a great day. See you soon.